So what do I have here? It's an 8-in-1 heat press, 12 by 15, plating on it. We'll do several different sizes of mugs. We'll do plates, 2 different sizes. We'll do hats, although we don't do hats here, it will do them. This was provided to me by Vevor to assemble, test, and review. I am not paid by them. They did provide this, however, all opinions and results are going to be my own. So we're going to get into this coming up. I'm Roger, welcome to the shop, and what I have here, as I mentioned in the introduction, is a 8-in-1 heat press provided to me by Vevor to I assume that's the way you pronounce it, V-E-V-O-R. I've got the controller in my hand right here. They provided this to me to test and review, and as I mentioned, any results, opinions are going to be my own. I'm unbiased on this. I do already have a heat press that I use a lot, and it is not a commercial one, but I use it as such. This is not a commercial one either. This is more for the hobbyist. It's not one of them great big heavy duty ones, but I'm going to really put it to the test. We'll see how well it performs. First, got to do a little bit of assembly. I didn't do an unboxing here because, well, wasn't much to the unboxing of it. So there is a manual that comes with this right here, but it doesn't tell you a whole lot about assembly. However, it's pretty self-explanatory. There's not too many parts here. You got 4 feet and 4 nuts. You got a little knob to put on up here for the height adjustment. So I'll get those put on, and then we'll get on with doing some more of this. Okay, after looking at this, I realized something. Like I said, there are no assembly instructions with putting these parts on. We want to screw this nut on here first, like so. And then you screw it in here. And once you get a good height set, you would tighten that nut up against the plate and to kind of act like a jam nut. And it's a good way to level this. And then that will lock that foot in place, like so. And you got to look for extraneous pieces of styrofoam laying around. See, there's more. Okay, get the rest of these on. These feet are a soft rubber. They're almost like a suction cup. They look like one. I don't think they're going to work as a suction cup. They kind of look like one, so I'm going to try to get all these set kind of the same height. Okay, on the top here for your height adjustment, there's a little knob that comes with it with a shoulder bolt. It just screws in there. Like I said, this does not come with any tools, so you're going to need a alien wrench to put that in, and this happens to be 5 M&Ms if you're keeping score. And that allows you to raise the height up and down. It'll release the pressure here. Well, it's not the smoothest operating, but it's going down. We'll try going up. Maybe it just needed to be loosened up a little bit. That's where you'll adjust your height for your pressure. This is a swing away. This knob back here, you can actually lock that in place. Or you can use it to adjust how easily you want this to swing. Okay, here's a controller. And here is your connector here. This is keyed, so it'll only go in one way. And you line up the key. Screw that on. Then just slip this in the keyway on the shaft there. Test here. That's reasonable. And this swings away to work with your parts. Of course, you got 2 mats here, as you do with most. There's a grommet here that looks like it came out in shipping. So I need to get that back in. There we go. That must have come loose in shipping. So we'll get a cord hooked up here and turn this on. Okay, so once you get it plugged in, switch on the side here. It'll come up. You want to press set. That's your set point. You want it to be, okay, we're in Fahrenheit already. And we want our temperature. I'm going to set this for 385. If you hold it, the numbers will run quickly. There we go, 385. Press set again. You set your time. I'm going to set the time here for, we'll just do 60 seconds. Set again. So we want it to be on Fahrenheit. And it's warming up. So we'll let it come up to temperature here. Okay, we're up to temperature here, and something I always do before I do a project when I first turn on the heat press and get it up to temperature is I close it for a cycle with nothing in it. Okay, unlike some heat presses, this does not have limit switches on it to tell the timer to start. So when you close your heat press, you'll need to push a little down arrow. That'll start the time down. And I'm preheating this before I actually do a little sublimation demonstration here. Okay, I should note here too that you're going to smell some like hot rubber and hot oil here as this heats up for the first time, because you're burning off or melting off or whatever manufacturing stuff, I guess you would call it. It's not objectionable, but there is a noticeable odor. So this is counting down here, or time's about up. It chirps, but it's not very loud, so you're going to have to really pay attention to what you're doing here. Then you'll need to do a reset by pushing that down button again. That'll take it back to your set time. Okay, on your plating, you should always use either parchment paper or butcher paper. I'm going to put a piece of parchment paper or butcher paper down here. What I'm going to do is sublimate a little graphic onto a Dollar Tree microfiber towel. These are 100% polyester. They're 4 for $1.25, so it's a good thing to practice on. Something you'll always want to do, though, is pre-press it to make sure there's no moisture in it. Just set another piece of, well, mess that up. I'll just pre-press that for a few seconds. I'm not going to start the timer. Just enough to make sure that there's no moisture in it. And it flattens it out. Okay, here's the graphic I'm going to be putting on there, and I should have some heat tape down here to hold this in place. This is on sublimation paper. It's A-sub sublimation paper. It's sublimation ink. You can't use just regular ink off your inkjet printer. It ain't going to work. So I'm going to have to be real careful here that I don't shift my image, but this is a good little thing to practice with. And this will be 385 for 60 seconds. Medium heavy pressure. I'll start my timer. Well, I wish that chirped louder than that, but I don't hear it all that well. Maybe it's louder than I think it is. Be careful here, since I don't have any heat tape on that. And this is hot. You should have gloves on. I don't. So there's our graphic. Just like that. Oh, pull these. I should have pulled this tag off, but I didn't. Turn the tag brown. No, not a big deal. It's just a little practice piece. But there's something that's good to use to practice with. Now I'll get on to showing how to use some of these other attachments, but I'm going to have to let this cool off first. Okay, while the heat press itself is cooling off, I'll show you how to get this mug press set up. There's several different, there's 4 different ones here. These 2 here are for doing the cone type mugs. I don't have any of those here. Then you have 2 of these here for the regular mugs. This is for the 16 ounce. This here is for the 11 ounce. I'm going to do an 11 ounce because I happen to have one here. And you can't use just regular mugs. They have to be sublimation blank mugs. If you try to do it on a regular mug, it's not going to turn out. So you'll see here on each side there's 4 holes in this bracket right here. And there are 4 holes over here on this side. There are screws that stick out each side. No, you don't put nuts on them or anything. They just fit into these holes. So it'll be like so on the side with the clamp, and then on the other side do the same thing. So it'll look like that. And I'll get my mug here and kind of get this sized up. And this thumb screw right here is where you adjust your pressure. I'll kind of get it in there where I want it. And that needs more pressure than that, so we'll turn this ahead. Yeah, I can still use a little more. I'm going to sublimate onto this, the graphic, so I need pretty good pressure. That looks pretty good. So I'll get this warmed up. Okay, to do this now, this out of the way. You would set any of the other ones in just like I did this one, depending on what type of mug you had. Okay, to set this up with your controller, I took the controller off the pedestal, it just slips off. You have the same thing here, you have this fitting and it's keyed. You put that into place. Plug it in, tighten the little screw down on the side, the knurled knob. And we'll turn this on. I want the same temperature, but I'm going to need a longer time. So I need to set my time to 190 seconds. Right there. So we'll let this warm up. And it's warming up. While that's warming up, I'll show you how I'm going to prep my graphic here. This here is my graphic, and don't make the mistake I made once and put it on upside down. This is just a just for a display here, or a little test. So you want to get that centered on there where you want it. Then you need to put heat tape on there to hold it in place. Make sure everything's straight. It's very easy to get one of these crooked. I've had a lot of experience with this. So you want to be careful. Take your time. So that's prepped. We just got to wait for the heat press to warm up. Okay, we got our heat press warmed up. So place this in here carefully where we want it. Close the press. Start the time. Okay, something I should mention, if you've never done this before, you'll see that the temperature has dropped dramatically because of the mug in there is sucking the heat right out of that pad. That's normal, and it should come back up. If it does not come back up to 385, I will not pull that until it does. It's very cool in the shop here today, so it's only 52 degrees in here. So it's not the ideal ambient temperature for this, but I had the most space here to be able to do this. Okay, we're back up to temperature here, and one thing you want to do is put gloves on because this is going to be hot. Slip that out. I'll pull my graphic here. And there we are. Heat tape off of there. and this will need some time to cool. Okay, something I should have mentioned when I was putting this together. I didn't do it here because I've done a lot of these and I know that my the quality of my paper. But after you put your graphic on and before you put it in the press, you really should put a piece of parchment paper or butcher paper around it to protect the lining in here, so that if you would happen to have ink bleed through your sublimation paper, and I don't with this particular paper, that's why I wasn't concerned about it. But some of the other papers may bleed through, and then you'll have ink on your heating element there, and you don't want that because that could end up in your next project. So I really should have shown that, but I didn't think of it at the time. But yeah, you want to put some paper on that. Now we'll let this cool, and see if the other part's cooled off, and I'll show you how these other attachments go on. Okay, I'll show you how the plate press goes on. It would be these guys here. There are two different sizes. Different sizes here. You'll see there's some screws on the back. I'll show you how these line up. This would be like for a saucer, and this would be like for a little bit bigger plate. I do not have any sublimation blank plates, so I will just show you how these go on. I can't actually press anything because, like I said, I don't have any plates. Same with the hats. I'll show you how the hat things go on, but I won't be able to actually press a hat. So there are a couple screws here you just loosen up. Don't take them clear out, just loosen them up. And this is still kind of warm. And just give this a little turn. And there's some key holes down there. There we go. That slips out, like so. And your plate piece, get the little styrofoam beads off of it. Line up into those little things. Make sure the screws are backed out far enough. You'll want the cord to the back, of course, because that's where your controller is. Set that into place and tighten the screws back down. This cord then, which is also keyed just like the everything else, goes into your controller here. Just line up the keyway, plug it in, turn it on, underheat up. I'm going to make sure this heats. And you can set your temperature and time just like we did before. Yes, that's heating right up, and I don't want it to get real hot because I need to be able to take that off of there again. Okay, for the hat press, you'll need to take this bottom plate off for the lower part of that. So there, if you'll see here, there's wing nuts underneath here. You just take those wing nuts off. And don't lose them. You press back down, and this will just lift off, like so. You have this piece here, which is your base. It slides into this little rail right here, like so. And then for the top, you have this piece here that mounts the same way as the plate press does. Yeah, you have to have your screws backed out far enough to get in there though. And you may need to slide this out to get that over around. And of course, you'll need to make some height adjustments for your pressure. Yeah, because that's way too tight there. This will plug in as the other ones did. And I'll need to raise this up. Other up. That's pretty good there. And yes, the back does flex. That's normal. So there would be your hat press. Like I said, we don't do hats, so I don't have anything I can even use for an example. You can either do, you need a sublimation type hat. You can't just, unless you're doing HTV vinyl, you could do HTV onto pretty much any kind of hat. So I'll show you how to take this back to normal operation with the regular heat press plating. Just disconnect your cable here, loosen those screws again. Slide this out of the way. Set this back on the studs down there. Tilt this up so you can see what I'm doing here. Just put the wing nuts back on. Okay, and we'll just set this back in. But that's still pretty warm. Line that back up. Of course, with the cord to the back. And tighten the screws back up. Cord back in. And we're back in business. So there's a demonstration of how to put this together. It's very simple. All the parts go together easily. I had no issues with that at all. It heats up quick. It seems to recover quickly when you put a project in. Of course, I always preheat my plating before I do anything. We do a lot of glass cutting boards with sublimation, and that is important to preheat. Even if I'm doing, for instance, these towels, I always preheat. You want your base plate to be up to temperature. You don't want, I don't do much with HTV. My granddaughter does quite a bit of it, and I'm going to let her take off and do some more testing with this because she does a lot of HTV. The plating area on this is 12 by 15, which would work fine for most things. One of the cutting boards I do is 12 by 12, and I wouldn't want to do a 12-inch board on a 12-inch press. I would rather have some area on each side of that. I would be a little bit concerned about heat transfer. My other heat press is a 15 by 15 for that reason, because we do some of the larger things on it. Obviously, you couldn't be doing 11 by 17 transfers on a big shirt on this either, unless you did it in several parts, and that's kind of a trick to do. It's nice that it has these different attachments for mugs. No, it does not do the 20-ounce skinny tumblers, nor does it do shot glasses. You need different type press for that. I mean, this part right here would even need to be smaller when you get into the shot glasses and that type of thing. That's a whole different press. But for doing regular mugs like this, the 11-ounce, the 16-ounce, got the 11-ounce one in here, there's a 16, then you have the two here for cone mugs. I do not have any sublimation blanks, so I can't demonstrate those on cone mugs. Plates, I don't do plates, my granddaughter does, but I do not have any blank sublimation blanks for that. I could make some, I suppose. You can go to Dollar Tree and get, cheap plates, and you can get sublimation coating and put on, and you can even do it with polyacrylic if you're not going to actually use them for food. So there's a few different things you can do with them. Everything heats up, everything works well, everything goes together. So what's the downsides of this? Well, everything's got a downside. The beeper on this is not very loud. At least for these old ears, they're not. You may be able to hear it fine. I have a hard time hearing it. It does not auto start. So when you close this press, the timer does not auto start. This doesn't have limit switches built in like the high-end ones do that automatically start the timer. You need to push the down button to start the timer, and then when the timer's done, you need to push it again to reset it back to your time. It's easy to set, and you can also set it for Celsius if you like. So that's a little bit fiddly there. This works pretty well. My concern would be, without locking the knob on the back, that it may change height if you're doing a lot of projects. The problem is, if you lock the knob on the back, you can't swing the press. That's one of the things I like about these types of heat presses, is you can swing it out of the way, put your project down and swing it back, and you don't have to try to get your hand up in there, with a regular clamshell. So that's one of the nice things about it. I just wish that this was a little bit tighter. This knob is not flimsy like they are in some types, so that works well. It was a little sticky when I first operated it, but once I got going, it works just fine. Okay, a little update, edit, late edit. This is in its new home now, and it's right over here. And it's going to be set up for a few different things. It's at the granddaughter's house. And if this place looks familiar, it's because this is in the basement of the renovation house. So there'll be more updates here coming shortly. Okay, so is it worth buying? Yes, I think it would be fine as an entry-level heat press. You have a lot of attachments. There's a lot of things you can do with it. There are some negative reviews on these, just there are as any heat press, because people do not want to go through the learning curve. They say, well, I burned my project, or, you know, it doesn't transfer, it doesn't do this, doesn't do that. You need to learn how to do these things. The settings I showed you here, for example, 385 degrees, 190 seconds for this mug. I already make these, so I know what my settings are, because I've been through the experiments on it. 60 seconds, 385 degrees. When I made this little cheap microfiber towel here, I already know what my settings are. Your mileage may differ, as they say, and I was gambling that everything in this heat press was going to be identical to what I do with my other heat press, and fortunately it was. So you're going to have to do some experimenting, and don't be afraid to experiment. There's a lot of things you can get at Dollar Tree, for example. These microfiber towels are cheap. That's a good way to experiment. They have other things too if you're using HTV instead of sublimation. That's my thing, is sublimation. The granddaughter's business, who is going to be doing a lot of work with this, primarily does HTV, and not so much on the sublimation side like her grandpa does. So we do different things, but it's still fine for both. So all these different things I've been using here, you know, where do you get them and this and that, and I have done quite a few videos on sublimation. There'll be at the end of this video, there'll be a couple little links, and you can also look at my channel, and there's a whole playlist on Cricut and crafts and that type of thing. The different things I use: heat tape, gloves, the mug blanks, the paper, the ink, the printer I printed it on. Down in the description will be links to all of that stuff. There'll be a link to this heat press as well. And I am what they call an Amazon affiliate, so if you buy any of that stuff, it does not increase your cost at all buying from those links. But I get a small commission on it, and it kind of helps pay for cameras and all that other kind of stuff, and keeping the shop warm, and my sweatshirts, and although this one was given to me. So if you got anything out of this, appreciate getting a thumbs up, always helps the channel. Otherwise, I'm Roger in the shop. This is going to go up to the loft. Let the granddaughter operate with it. You'll see it again. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.